Well, welcome back to another coffee and a chat. It is the wee hours of the morning. I still have the curtains shut because it is just pure darkness out there. The sun hasn't even started to come up yet. So I think it's running a little late today. Seems like it should already be getting up, but you know how, I totally get it. I'm usually running a little behind myself. But anyway, notice some differences? Some change that is coming. Got the guys to help me yesterday, and we did some moving around of some furniture, and there's some more to go yet. God's been kind of laying some different things on my heart about literally getting our house in order. Um, we all need to be getting our house in order spiritually, if you know what I mean. But there's some actual physical and practical changes and some things that I've said this before. I know God's getting Marvin and I ready for something, but I'm not always really sure what it is He's getting us ready for. Sometimes I don't know until we get there, and it's like, oh, that's why. Okay, I get it. So I grabbed my grandson yesterday because I knew I had this out in a trailer and here on the land, and I thought I was going to use it for something else. And then I thought, no, I was going to use it for something else. And then the Lord said, no, this is what you should do with it. So I had my grandson go out and help me get it all cleaned off and moved out of storage. And then I cleaned it up and moved it in here and started putting some of my special things on it. And yeah. And I have a wedding picture of Marvin and I, but he won't come on camera. He won't do anything with me yet and tell our story and all. And so I was like, so I put a Post-it pad, little piece of paper over his face so you can't see him yet either. I told him I was probably going to do something like that. Yesterday he was laughing. Was he sitting in this? No, he was sitting in the other chair. And I was like, why don't you just scoot it over a little and we could just do a test video so you could see it's not that bad. And I can't even get him to do a fake one. So I don't know. Yeah, I told him, I'm going to tell everybody they need to start praying for the conviction of God to come down on him so that we can get on with this. Because I know you guys will love him way more than you love me. He's a pretty awesome guy, and he's got some important things to share too. He's one of those one-on-one people. Don't put him in front of a crowd. And I guess he thinks you guys are a crowd. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is with him. I just know that God has really blessed him. And anybody that's ever had some one-on-one time with Marvin and had him minister to them will tell you that he's a pretty amazing guy in the Lord. So, and he's got a powerful testimony, and God has brought him through so much. And there's so many things that we could talk about, that we could share. But I need him here doing it with me. Some of them aren't my story at all. It's his story, and he needs to share it. And other things are part of our story, and we need to share it. So I don't know. You guys be praying for him. But anyway, so yeah, we were talking about Easter eggs last night, which I guess is, leaving a little clue, a little hint, of revealing something that, so that if people look around, they can see it. And I said, well, because my grandson said, oh, you got Pop-Up's picture up there, huh? So he's, the big reveal. And I'm like, oh, no, wait, I don't want the big reveal yet. He needs to come on camera because he looks even way better than the picture. But I put up some of my favorite things, and this goes all the way to the floor. So I've got some other stuff you won't even see that'll go down there. And there's going to be, I believe, soon some change with how I filmed this, maybe even a little bit of editing. There would be nice when I say the wrong thing, if I could put the words up to tell you the right thing after I go through it, and maybe some of the little lulls, chop them things out of there. But I don't know. I don't know, because there's also something that feels very right about just being raw and real and unedited. So at least for me, I'm not saying that about other people. I've my friends Ginger and Dana, they have their podcast Walls of Jericho. Now, before I said it was Two Sisters in Christ or whatever, I can't remember, but it's Walls of Jericho. There's been some changes with them, and God has really blessed them with kids and grandkids that know what they're doing. And so they are, oh man, their videos are really looking like Hollywood. They're very well, and they're learning to share things in a more concise manner than, you know, I'm sure their kids and grandkids, if they ever saw any of these videos, would just be horrified. But that's okay, because this is who I am. I horrify people. And Ginger and Dana, I'm so excited for them and what God's doing there. And if you haven't checked it out, I still don't know how to share links and stuff yet, but I'm waiting for God to bring somebody or show me or whatever. Because one day I'm going to be able to just put a link in here and you'll be able to click on it and go see what's going on. But Walls of Jericho, Ginger and Dana, and just it's a huge blessing. And last night I'll confess, I fell asleep in my chair. I told Marvin I should have gone to bed 2 hours earlier, but a lot of you guys had posted some new videos, and I like to keep up with you. You know, if you've got a channel and videos and stuff, I usually end up subscribing. You know, if I know about you, then I subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I want to know when your stuff comes up. And you guys just really have blessed me so much. So I was watching a bunch of your videos last night, and oh my goodness, there's this one young kid. Oh, I know you're a young man, but to me, you're a kid. I've got grandkids older than you. But I can't see, and if I don't have stuff in front of me, and even if I do, I don't always pronounce it right. And he's got his is, what is it, de jour philosopher or something like that. I Forgive me. It's early in the morning and I don't have notes in front of me. And like I said, even if I did, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. But he had done a live, and I watched the recorded version of it, and just talking, thoughts about Jesus. And that was just, he reminds me a lot of my grandson, and of one of my grandsons. And I, just was, could see my grandson, doing a video or something. Yeah, it just was, and it's like I just want to, I just want to hug him and squish him and adopt him. I'm so proud of him. It was so good to just sit and for, I think it was like 14 minutes, and just listen to his thoughts and what God's showed him and been dealing with him in his life and his growth, and yes, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then of course Devoted D, I always love. I think I saw 3 maybe different ones yesterday that I hadn't seen yet, and even this morning I'm watching one of the shorts from Walls of Jericho, and what is it, Warriors for Christ, and I won't get them all, but anyway, there were several channels last night that there were they had posted new things, or there were things that came up in my feed that I hadn't seen yet, and so I just was being blessed by you guys last night. And I loved every moment of it so much that eventually I started nodding off in my chair, and I didn't even know I'd done it until my phone fell out of my hands. Marvin can sleep and still hold on to his phone like he's watching it. It's a talent that many men have. And I don't know, I don't have that talent, but I do have the age that I now get tired and I fall asleep wherever I am. So that was my winding up of my night last night, and kind of a little bit of my start of my morning today. But anyway, I just was excited to share this with you, and I'm sure it's going to go through some more changes and all yet. But you see my coffee in a chat mug. Wait, I gotta figure out how to do my finger. See, I've got my coffee in a chat mug there, and okay, and it goes like this, and that is probably not really clear to see, but that's my mom and dad, a picture I took of them a few years before they passed away, and one of my favorite pictures. When I see that, just makes me all happy inside, and um, because that's the way I remember them. Very loving and fun and kind, and yeah. And then I've got some bells that actually have meaning to me, and I've got my candlesticks from Gail, and then this is an angel that her sister sent me after Gail's son passed away, after Brandon passed away. So this is that's Brandon's angel, and she sent it to thank me for being there for Gail. And it's like, you don't even need to thank me for that, of course. And I know Gail would be there for me. We need to be there for each other especially when we go through those impossible things. And then this is a wooden box that belonged to my grandpa Edgar, and it's full of some pictures and stuff I had. And then this is a cowbell that has been in my family since it left the cow. And when I was a kid, we had these little bells. So when we were sick, my mom, we each had a different bell, and each bell sounds different. So if we needed her, then we would ring our bell, and she would know which kid she was going to find out what we needed. And usually my older brother got the cowbell, but we all wanted it. It's pretty cool. But anyway, ha 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 ha. Here we are all these years later, and I've got the cowbell. So, because I've got all my mom and dad's stuff that I'm still. Yesterday, when we went into the trailer that this shelf was stored in, there was a box sitting on it, and that was still taped shut. And I told my grandson, "Oh, that looks like it was one of my mom and dad's boxes. Looks like one of the ones that never got unpacked. Is that what's written on there? Is that what's in there?" So we found a pair of scissors and cut the tape and opened it up, and sure enough, it's a box that has been here since 2015 and never been unpacked. So, or 2016, I guess. Yeah, 2016. But anyway, I'll have to get around to that one of these days. Mom and dad are gone, and there's still a bunch of boxes in storage that they had never unpacked. That mom, it was too much stuff, so she's like, "We'll just set it out there, and we'll get to it." And they got to some of it, but most of it just sat there, and so unless I find treasures that I just can't part with, most of the stuff that I find is, well, if it's any good still after sitting in storage that long, it probably is just going to end up going to donation or whatever, because it's just, there's so much stuff. So anyway, yeah. All right, so today I wanted to tell you a story about three little boys. The oldest boy is Robbie, and Robbie was probably about 9 when this happened. The second boy is Chase, and Chase was about 7, and he's my son. And then the third boy is Trey, and Trey would have been about 5, because I think the boys were all about 2 years apart from each other. And they all, went to their families went to our church, and so the boys they loved each other, and we're kind of growing up together. In fact, my son Chase is married to Trey's little sister Macy. So and I've known Macy since she was, I don't even know if she was walking yet, but she was a little baby. She was a pretty little girl, and now she's the mother of my grandchildren. Who would have ever known? But anyway, these boys grew up loving each other, and always telling people they were cousins, and even though they really weren't, but they would tell people they were, and so anyway, Robbie, he was the oldest, so everybody thought he was great. And Chase wanted to be like Robbie, and and so he would try to do whatever Robbie did and talk how Robbie talked and act like Robbie acted, and he just he thought a lot of Robbie. Well, Trey was the same way about Chase. So he'd be trying to act like Chase and walk like Chase and talk like Chase, and these little boys would walk around in a stair step row, the three of them. And I used to just say it's like three little ducks, you know, following each other around. And so all three of these boys, we lived out in the country, and country was a big part of our lives. And they all had cowboy boots. And so the day came when Robbie outgrew his cowboy boots and he got some new cowboy boots. And so he took the old cowboy boots and he gave them to my son Chase. Now, my son Chase, he wanted to be Robbie. And so he took off his cowboy boots that were starting to get a little snug on his feet, and he put on Robbie's cowboy boots, which were way too big. And those boots came almost up to his thighs. They were past his knees, and they were just made to be, mid calf or whatever. But they were past his knees and way too big, and he would be scooting around in them. But you think you were going to get him not to wear those boots? No way. Those were his new boots. Those were Robbie's boots, and he was going to wear Robbie's boots. And so he had those boots on, and he'd wear them to church. It was hilarious. I wouldn't let him wear them to school, or sometimes he wore them when we went to town, though. I will say that. But I know the school would have sent him home and said, put a pair of shoes on this kid that fit. But he wanted to wear them to church. You know what? I let him. Why not? Because, see, when Chase took his cowboy boots off, because they're starting to get too small anyway, Mom, he gave his boots to Trey. And Trey's mom let Trey wear his boots because Chase's boots were way too big for Trey. They did come up to about Trey's thighs. So now you've got Robbie walking around in boots that fit, in his own boots, new boots, wonderful boots. And then you've got Chase following behind him in his old boots, Robbie's old boots, that are way too big. And he's, shuffling around in them, and oh, I can still see it. And then behind him is Trey trying to keep up in boots that are way too big for him, that are Chase's boots. And it was just hilarious as those boys, in fact, I think they wore those boots out before they probably ever even grew into them. But Trey's mom let him wear Chase's boots, so I let Chase wear Robbie's boots, and Robbie led the two little ducklings behind him, and they were just adorable. They were absolutely adorable boys, and I miss those times. Even though there were some hard things about those times, there were a lot of things that were a lot simpler. And if you've had kids that have grown up and become adults, like, my one daughter's even a grandma already, you miss when they were little and they still liked you. When they weren't old enough to start telling you what was wrong with you, or wishing you were something that you weren't, or whatever, and going through that weird teenage thing when you're going, who are you and what have you done with my child? Yeah, I miss when they were little. I loved it. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you today, because one of the things that God showed me is, as we go into new times with things that are going to change, and whatever all is coming, things looking different than what we're used to, because God's doing something, and it's already springing out, but it's going to be a lot more obvious in the days ahead. And there is going to be a greater definition between the sheep and the goat. And if you read your Bible, you know that there is a separating that it says God will do, of separating the sheep from the goats. And he's already been doing that. I mean, I can see it very obviously, and it's going to become even more obvious and more defined. And that in itself is bringing change and things looking differently. Um, but as he does that, and that change comes, this change comes in our governments around the world, in pretty much every aspect of our lives. I'm not going to call a bunch of stuff out for many reasons right now, but change is coming, guys, whether you're ready for it or not, whether you want it to or not, whether you like it or not. Change is coming, and things are going to look different than what you and I are used to and what we expect, and it's going to happen at a much faster rate than what we're used to. I know, it used to be when they'd say, oh, we're going to make this change or whatever. It would be 10 to 20 years away before the change would come. And we'd never get too excited about it because, it'll gradually come. But then, eventually it would show up and it's like, oh, yeah. And we're not talking about years anymore. And there's some things, it's not even going to be months. It'll be down to weeks, even days. Some things will be right now. And we've experienced some of that, with some health things that went on here in the past. We started to get used to that things can change almost immediately. So there's more of that coming. And as it comes, there are things we want to do and things we think we need to do, and there's a lot of voices that are speaking, and it's kind of like those boys in those boots. There are times when we may look at what somebody else is doing and say, ooh, I want to do that. But see, if it's not what God's called you to do, then it's like putting on those boots that are too big. I mean, those boys could hardly walk. It was a lot of work trying to keep their feet in those boots and not fall over or whatever, because those boots didn't fit them. They weren't their boots. They were somebody else's boots, and they were trying to fill them. And, and you've seen that with little kids. I mean, all my kids, when they were little, tried to put on my shoes or my husband's boots or whatever, and, and walk around in them, and they would laugh and giggle and fall into a little bundle of joy in the middle of the floor because they couldn't do it because they weren't their shoes, and they were nowhere close to fitting in them. And so it's kind of a heads up today that as you look around you and as change comes and you're trying to figure out how to navigate through it, don't navigate through your own understanding or try to work through it by being like somebody else. See, each one of us has an important place. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You do. You have value. You have a role in everything that's coming. That's why you're still here. You have a purpose. And it's not to be like me, but who would want to do that? It's not to be like somebody else. See, I can't do my channel like Ginger and Dana, even though theirs is spectacular. But that's not what God's telling me to do. It doesn't mean they should do what I'm doing or I should do what they're... No, we each need to know what it is God wants us to do and how he wants us to do it. We can't even succumb to the pressures of other people that'll say, oh, but you really need to do it this way or what. I have people that will comment like, oh, you should always do your hair like this. No, don't, keep it down. Don't put it up. Well, you know what? It's not down because people have told me to keep it down. It's early in the morning. I haven't started working yet today. If I start working, and depending on what I'm doing, and I get hot and sweaty or I'm working with food or something, my hair's going up because I've got that's what I have to do. I have long hair, and ask Marvin. I can't remember what it was that I made the other day and he was eating it. Yeah. One of my hairs somehow got in it because I hadn't tied my hair up. So I have to put my hair up for different things. When I'm feeding fire, wood into the wood stove, I kind of need to have my hair under control because My hair flies around. It does not. I know right now it seems like it's staying in place, but you guys, it has a mind of its own. And if I don't have it under control, I've had my hair start to fall into that, because it's long enough to be sucked into that wood stove, and that would not be good. No, I don't want to go up in a blaze of glory. Not like that. So, there's just some things that's what I got to do. It's practical because I'm not cutting my hair off. Someday we're going to talk about my hair, and I don't have this religious thing about it. But my hair, what's going on with my hair as to whether it's growing, I'm growing it out, or leaving it alone or hacking it off, will let you know where I am emotionally. My emotions are very tied to my hair. And I didn't realize that for a long time. And then God pointed out the patterns to me. It's like, oh. So, yeah, there's some people that think I should cut my hair. At your age, you really shouldn't have long hair. You really should. That's not as bad as it used to be. I think it's more acceptable now, but there was a time there when it was not acceptable for a woman of a certain age to have long hair. No, I had a friend who used to call it the menopause bubble. Cut it short and perm it. Yeah, don't want that. That's not my thing. My mom had that for a while. And I was like, oh, Mom, come on. But I'm not going to do something because of what other people want. Well, you shouldn't sit in that chair and just in front of, I don't like that. Just that red curtain back there. It's boring. Yeah, I know it is, but it's not going to stay that way. And and it'll evolve, and eventually I get to it. God gives me a vision, and away we go. I have lots of people that will, I had somebody send me a long email, long one, explaining what I really needed to do. And how you're never going to be a success doing what you're doing. But if you would do this, this, and that, well, you know what? I'm not trying to be a success. So, and I thank them. That's very kind. And I see what, for you to share all your knowledge with me. And I see what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. But those aren't my goals. My goal is not to be, a #1 YouTube channel, and be making millions of dollars off. I don't think anybody does, but that's not my goal. I'm not trying to build a business here. My goal is to simply share my stories and my life lessons and leave some kind of a legacy to encourage somebody, and to do it with whatever God's telling me to do, not even just out of my own want tos. Because in the beginning, a lot of it was, I want to share this story. Oh, I want to tell this. It was so exciting. And it's like, I need to do 6 or 7 videos a day. I didn't. I kept myself to only one video, but it was like, how is there going to be enough time to get all my stories out there? And, and it was a whole different energy. And now I'm a little more comfortable, a little bit more calmed down, although goofy things still happen. And because that's my life. And yes, I laugh and I have joy, and because I would rather laugh at my mistakes and laugh through the challenges and have joy than to get all frustrated and upset like I used to do. So I'm just being me, and it doesn't have to look good, and I don't have to look good, because that's part of what God's teaching me and working with in my life and delivering me from some of those expectations. Yes. And doing what everybody else wanted me to do, even if it wasn't what God was telling me. So see, even though I know people mean well, when they want to give me their vision for my channel, I have to, bumps and all, just be and do who God made me to be and what He's given me to do. So I'm not going to put on Robbie's boots or Chase's boots or your boots or Ginger's boots or Dana's boots or Keith's boots or Marvin's boots, or, there's nothing wrong with any of those boots, but they don't work on me. They work for them because they're their boots. It's not that there's anything wrong with the boots. It's when you try to put on somebody else's boots that you're not meant to wear, that they don't fit you, they weren't made for you, that's when there's a problem. When I do that, that's when there's a problem. So I love that people keep telling me what to do, honestly, because it helps me practice not giving into that, because that's been one of my downfalls in my life, is always thinking that I had to make everybody else happy and do whatever somebody else wanted me to do. And, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, whether I liked it or didn't like it, I just had this issue with pleasing people. And pleasing people outranked pleasing God at some pretty key points in my life. And I paid a price for that. I don't want to ever do that again. Once I figured out what I was doing wrong and why this was happening to me, then it's like, okay, now Lord, help me not do this again. Well, how do you learn not to do it? Well, you've got to have the temptation to do it. You've got to have it put in front of you so that you can say no to what you're supposed to say no to and say yes to what you're supposed to say yes to. And the more you practice that and the more you're tested in that and do it the right way, the stronger you get. And pretty soon, problem taken care of. Although don't ever get too comfortable, because when you least expect it, the enemy will try to sneak one by you. So you got to keep on your toes, but you got to get strong and conditioned to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. So today, I'm probably going to, maybe I should title this, Wear Your Boots. Wear the boots God's given you. Yeah, maybe that. So whatever boots God's given you, those are the boots you want to wear. Even if you kind of like their boots better, you can't wear theirs. You got to wear yours. All right. Well, the sun is finally starting to come up and there's a fog coming across the field again today. I like that. And so if I got up a little later, I would have had those curtains open so you could see it, because I want to do that and see what this looks like too. I'm playing around with all of these things and seeing what I like and what works. And because I'll tell you one thing, stuff looks different on camera than it does in person. And so I was playing with the camera earlier to try and figure out how to space things so it looked right. Because yeah, in person, this looks way off, but on camera, it works. So oh well, that's life. But I'm learning and I'm having fun. So anyway, you guys, I'm going to let you go so that you can get something done, and I need to get something done. But I hope this is an encouragement to some of you that have the same struggles I do, and that we can all learn to be comfortable in the skin God gave us, with the personalities He gave us, and just be who He called us to be. So those of you that are doing the videos out there and sharing Jesus with your stories and with what God's giving you in the way He's given you, keep going. I am so excited and proud of every single one of you when I see you go out. Some of you guys have you're so bold. It is awesome. It is amazing and wonderful. And yeah, I'm sure the enemy is not happy with any of us right now. But you guys, that's okay. And if the enemy wants to try to mess up your life and mess up things for you, just keep serving Jesus. Keep the joy of the Lord bubbling out in you, because He hates that. So fight him in that way. And pretty soon, when he sees that it's not doing any good, he'll move on and go find somebody that he can mess up. Just don't let it be you. Okay? All right. I love you guys. And I'm going to talk to you tomorrow about, I don't know, whatever God gives me to talk to you about. So you have an awesome day. Talk to you later.